If you can tie your passion with your brand, with your identity, you'll be more motivated and have that discipline to follow through on, because it's a part of who you are. And when we identify with something, I mean, we'll fight tooth and nail to protect it.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself, and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up, because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior. And on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Welcome to Sovereign Man Podcast, where we aim to make men masculine again. I'm your man, Nicky Ballou, and we're here with one of our favorite guests, Paul Bauer of the Come
Nicky,
On Man Podcast. How you doing, bro?
Nicky, it's getting to the point where we're gonna have to change the name of the show to the Nicky and Paul Show.
You know what? No question. So, Paul, this whole conversation of helping a man stand out, create a brand for himself, is something you and I have been talking about for some time. And I know that part of what you do is you help men, and you've got a very particular brand you've created all around that. Folks who listen to this show know a little bit about you because you've been on quite a few times in the last little while. But I'd like you to think about what made you decide to create your brand in this space as an expert in attraction dynamics between men and women. And why do you think it's important for men to pay attention to their own personal brand, as it were?
Oh, that's a really good question, Nicky. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because this isn't my first rodeo with podcasting and stuff. I've always wanted to do some kind of podcasting, and years and years ago, you can still find it on YouTube. I had a show called Tech Shop, and it was all about IT and technology and hacking and systems and stuff like
Hacking?
that.
You're
Hacking,
a hacking dude?
yeah,
Shoot.
yeah.
I would have never figured that out about you, bro.
Yeah. I've done a lot of network security, and I used to go to hacker conventions all the time and stuff like that.
No kidding.
But I originally started that more as a hobby, though. And so it started off like it was just a once a month thing. I could put it together. At that time, I didn't have all the tools I have now. So editing it became a real chore. And then I got involved with a podcast network. I can't remember what it was called, the Tech Podcast Network. And they were bringing on sponsorships, and they were requiring me to do at least one episode a week when I was originally doing it as a hobby. And they started paying pretty good, but it became such a chore that I just didn't love it anymore, you know? And so eventually it just became too much work. I also had a day job at the time. I had a, wife and 2 kids. It was just too much. And so I finally gave up on that. And then a couple of years later, I tried, I got in my head, I was going to do a politics podcast, and so I started doing, an audio only politics podcast. And politics to me is just, it's such a mental drain. It can be. And so that wasn't
a rabbit hole, bro. It's a total rabbit hole.
It is. And so I wasn't passionate about that either. So that didn't go anywhere. But when I found this space, it was because I had gone through, some breakups. I had gone through some adversity in my life. I had to build myself again, from the ground up. And I really found a passion in it. And so when I got the idea to start my podcast, it wasn't necessarily to get into coaching and to become a certified life coach and NLP practitioner, any of that stuff. It was really just for myself to level up and get better with women, to constantly have this on the forefront. So I'm always studying it, and then just connect with other men and start working with other men. because one of the things I learned from one of my mentors, Dr. Robert Glover, was how important it is for men to connect with other like-minded men in the space. And so I was like, man, I could do a podcast about it. I've done it before. I know what doesn't work. I know what makes me hate it. So how can I make this so that it's something I'd love to do? And that's how the podcast was started. I made it so it wasn't a lot of editing involved, and it was just more free flowing, and it just became a lot more effortless. It's still work, but it's work that I enjoy doing, you know? And then, yeah, so that's how I ended up doing the podcast portion, but then it really just started clicking when I would see some of the advice I'd put out on social media, guys that were tuning in the podcast, they were taking what I was saying and running with it and applying it in their own lives, and then coming back to me months or years later going, "Man, you fixed my marriage. Man, I'm loving dating again. Man, like, you know, all these types of things where I'm seeing other men report back their results that they're getting, and it just became really rewarding. And I was like, man, this could be something, you know. And one of the things that I harp on when it comes to men is how important it is for men to have a mission, to have a purpose in life. And I realized, man, this is a worthwhile purpose in life to help men get better with women, because most men don't know, they don't have a clue when it comes to women. I certainly was that guy, you know, 10, 15 years ago. And I was like, man, there's so many guys out here that just don't get it. They just don't get it. They're frustrated because they don't get it. And I can help those guys.
Yeah. You know, the founder of the Sterling Men's Weekend, Justin Sterling, who just passed away a few days ago, actually, very, very sad, said, and I quote verbatim, "A man without a purpose is just spending time. A man without a purpose is just spending time." So I want you to, Paul, talk about the blending of a purpose with creating a thought leader brand, a personal brand, because you're doing that. You're in the process of doing that. And in fact, I would argue you've gone a lot further than most men ever do with this. And you've even turned it into, you know, money. You've monetized it. Why do you think it matters to a man to do this?
Well, for me, it's funny. I didn't set out to do that.
I know you didn't.
I know, it's like I fell on it by accident, but it's important for a guy to have something that he's passionate about. That's something that he wakes up in the morning and looks forward to. It doesn't have to be, you know, running a podcast or a, you know, a personal brand, but it has to be something that gives your life meaning. There's one of my other mentors in the space, Bob Proctor, always said that so many guys are tiptoeing through life hoping that they make it safely to death. Like
Right.
that's no way to live. And that's the way I was for a long time, Nikki. I think that contributed to the end of my marriage. I think a part of that was what contributed to the end of my relationship with Red Pill Chick. It was that I was just a guy who was existing. I didn't have something that I was truly passionate about that drove me in the you know, in the morning. And what I realized on this whole journey, this whole process, which really started out just being, you know, leveling up and getting better with women. And one of the quotes or the mottos I have for my podcast is that when you level up to get better with women, it tends to make you better in all areas of your life. And it also makes life worth living. There's a lot of things that I started doing I never would have done. I started riding a motorcycle several years ago, just because I was like, I need to get out and do something. I need something that's exhilarating, something that makes me, you know, gives me something to look forward to, something that's fun and a little bit of dangerous, adds a little bit of excitement to my life. You know, I do stuff like that. I travel so much more now. I go on extended trips with my girlfriend, Nurse Chick. You know, we go on all sorts of adventures around the world and stuff like that. And it's because I realize, man, this world is so miraculous and so big. And if I'm just sitting around letting life happen to me, I don't get to experience any of that stuff. And so that's what drove me to do this kind of thing. And I think if a guy finds that kind of purpose in his life, um, no matter what it is, if it's building a brand or whatever, it can give him that sort of experience in life where he can actually experience it. You know what I mean?
So I totally understand that, and your story is pretty inspiring. And honestly, Paul, I've said this to you before. I think the world needs you to become a globally renowned thought leader, helping hundreds and thousands of men. And then you're going to need to train other men to do what you do, because there's not enough of you helping men do this, man. I mean, this whole issue of men in long-term marriages having their sex life go in the toilet, in my opinion, is the single biggest contributor to family breakdown. And I know you understand and agree with me. And that's why what you're doing, there's no room for complacency for you, bro. You can't get comfortable. You got to light a fire under your ass every day and go, who the hell needs to speak to me today? Who's suffering that I need to save? And your brand is a bit of that, you know, it may be, you may not like this, but I'm just going to say, because this is truly how I see it. You're a bit of a savior, dude, to these dudes. You know what I'm saying? Your purpose and your brand are melding together. Why do you think men need to look at that for themselves? And I know this is a bit of a heavy lift question, but give it a shot.
Yeah. So why do men need to marry their passion with?
Yeah, their purpose with their brand, with who they put themselves out in the world to be.
Okay. And that, are we talking about strictly like building business and stuff too?
Doesn't have to be about a businessman. It's just, you know what I mean? Not every purpose is about making money.
Right.
But every purpose is about who you are in the world, I would argue.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because there's a lot of times where on my show I'll tell guys that a lot of people equate their purpose with their career, and it doesn't necessarily have to be
the same thing. No,
right. It doesn't have to be. I had a friend of mine years ago when I was working as a systems engineer for I can't remember the name of the company, but this guy was so cool. He was, and he and I had worked at previous companies together. And when he and I would chat, we got in this conversation one day about what we tell people we do for a living. Right. And what he tells people is, I'm a drummer in a band. And I was like, you tell people you're a drummer in a band? And he goes, yeah, because he's like, that's my passion. I love music. I've been a musician my whole life. And when he was in a band, and so he would go around on the weekends and around San Diego and play at different clubs and stuff like that. He couldn't make a living off of it, but it was something that he was passionate about. So when people asked him, what do you do for a living? He's like, I'm a musician. I play in a band. And I go, you don't tell people you're in IT? I'm like, you actually make pretty good money in IT. That's not something you tell. He goes, no, IT just pays the bills. That's just a job. This is my career. Like, this is my passion. This is what I love. So if you look at it from that standpoint, that passion, it tends to just automatically blend in with your identity a little bit. I think people, when they're really passionate about stuff, they can't wait to tell other people about it. In fact, some people won't shut up about it. That's my problem. When I'm around good company, I have to always remind myself that you can't red pill other people. They have to sort of want it, right? Red pill sort of triage. So I can't just go around all the time telling people intersexual dynamic stuff. They don't want to hear it. But yeah, I mean, for my brand, when it comes to like being on social media and talking about that kind of stuff, it's important to at least be so passionate about it that I can talk about it off the cuff without having to go look in a manual or anything like that. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
You are. I think the story of your friend who said he's a drummer in a band illustrates that beautifully. Beautifully, because IT just pays the bills. And I look at myself, right? You know what I do for a living. I help entrepreneurs, sell more, make more money, build their brand. But when you said that quote from your friend that I'm a drummer in a band, I go, you know what? I help men level up and win. That's really what I do. Now, I got a business where I pay the bills and then some, doing what I do, but nothing lights me up more than having a meeting with a group of men, either over Zoom or in person, and just getting deep into it. So I totally understand that. That's very powerful, actually. That's very powerful. I'm a drummer in a band. I might make that quote the title of this episode. I'm a drummer in a band.
There you go. I'm a drummer in a band.
Are you a drummer in a band, or are you just some dude who's paying the bills? Because that's powerful. That's very powerful. Like I'm looking at March 2025 right now. There's a feeling of complacency, if I may say so, out there. And I've fallen victim to it myself. Like Paul, I had a very good year last year, financially, business-wise, was excellent. And this year started off pretty decently as well. But I found myself getting a little complacent because I've done so well. I don't have to push as hard right now. You know what I mean? And I got some amazing clients. I mean, you're one of my clients. You know the drill.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who need me, man. I'm really good at what I do. I help people get really great results, and there's a lot of people that are suffering. And I'm there was a time where I'd just say, no, man, I'm going to get those people. I'm going to help them. I'm going to get them going. Right now, I'm like, hey, if they want to do it, they do it. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. And I'm like, that's comfort, and comfort is like a drug, right?
Yeah.
And it's fed by complacency. But I would argue that this feeling of complacency is something in North America, at least, that has happened ever since President Trump won the election. Because, I mean, last year when Biden was in there, we were all fighting, man. We have to defeat the evil Democrats. We got to get these guys who want to take their freedom out of here. You know what? They're going to destroy the economy. So we pushed hard. We went out there. We got sales. Well, Trump won, man. And look at him. He's the greatest damn president. Like in 2 months, he's done more than most people do in 2 terms, right? Look at everything he's accomplished. So I feel like there's a lot of people that are like, okay, well, Trump's in charge. I don't have to worry so much. I can take my foot off the gas. But I think that's dangerous. I think that's very, very dangerous because complacency can lead to defeat. And I look at this and I go, there is at least 1,000 men that need to know about me helping men level up inside my world, and you with your beer club, same. And inside my business, there's at least 50, 100 entrepreneurs that need Nikki Ballou, like kicking their ass and helping them get objections done and all that stuff. And even the guys that are in our course right now, man, there's a lot of people who are a little bit complacent right now. That feeling of complacency is permeated throughout everybody. So we're going to light the fire under everybody's ass. Like I'm back from my vacation with a renewed bit of purpose to make that happen. And I'm wondering what your comments are. Do you agree with my perception of what society's like right now in terms of complacency? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, my clientele, a lot of those guys, the reason why they're at where they're at is because they're complacent. They've reached a level of comfort in their relationships, in their marriage. They think that they don't have to try anymore. And so that's why they are where they are. And so that's been a struggle of mine since I started working with guys in dead bedrooms, is trying to snap them out of that complacency to get them motivated enough to want to do something about it. Because a vast majority of the guys out there, I put out videos all the time on social media that I estimate only 3% of guys are willing to do the work and take some action necessary to fix their marriages. And the other 97% are content to just see how things play out and then wonder why 80% of divorces are filed by women, And I have a friend who he does sort of divorce recovery type work, and his major clientele is women. And these women will come to him saying, I've been trying to get my husband to snap out of complacency for years. I've been wanting him to set the tone and lead. I've been wanting him to be more ambitious. I've been wanting him to be more decisive and assertive and all the stuff, but he just won't do it. And I'm at my wit's end, and I've tried so much. And a lot of these women have checked out mentally years before they go and actually pull the trigger. But these guys who are in that 97%, they don't want to do anything. They're just like, oh, well, if it happens, it happens. Then then they end up in my comment section complaining about women and divorce, and it's all women's fault or whatever. Let me ask you a question, Nikki. When it comes to that, because I don't know about you, but when I'm talking to a guy and I can hear the pain in his voice on one of these breakthrough calls, and I know I can help him, and I know he's just not motivated enough. And like, I go through everything I can do to help him, and then it's
Yeah.
just objection, 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 and eventually it gets to a point where it's like, okay,
You haven't
this guy's
gotten him to enough pain. He's not in enough
right,
pain.
right.
He's not
But
in
I
enough
mean,
pain, Paul. That's the bottom line. He's
yeah,
not in enough pain. Because
but what?
I'll tell you this right now, okay?
Yeah,
Like you and I were talking about somebody, and for reasons of confidentiality, I'm not going to get into who it is or why or any of that stuff. But you and I
sure.
were talking about somebody off camera, and we both know a thing or two about his situation. I can tell you that the level of pain this man is in reality, is a 10 out of 10. What he's allowing himself to feel is a 4 or a 5.
Right. Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Your
Yeah.
job in the call is to make him feel a fucking 10. If
Right.
you are not clear in that call that you've taken him to a 10, don't make him an offer. Don't make him an offer. He's got to be twisted up in knots. Like you should physically feel uncomfortable with how much pain he's feeling on that call. If it's all up here, oh yeah, this really sucks, he's not feeling it. He's not feeling it. It's like a guy with a broken arm who's checked out on morphine, so he doesn't feel the pain of the broken arm, but it's there. So he doesn't want to fix his broken arm. You're telling him your arm's fucking broke, asshole. Fix your damn arm. And you have to treat it like that. You're the doctor. You got to push on it and go, does this hurt? Until he goes, stop pushing on it.
Right. No, I get that. What I was going with that was, have you ever gotten to a place where a guy is in so much pain, but they still won't move forward? Like, do you like after those types of calls, do you think about that? Be like, man, I could have fucking helped that guy.
I didn't put him in enough pain on the call. I fucked up. That's where I go. Because that's the truth. That's the truth. He doesn't feel enough pain. Look, I've been off of our weekly calls. I don't know if you've been on the last couple with Mark Von Musser, but if you speak to Mark will tell you again and again that if a guy has a need for you and he's not buying, it's because you didn't do your job to put him in enough pain.
Fair. Yeah.
You got to salt his ass, man. That wound's open. You got to be pouring salt in it. Don't go to solution yet until you're clear. Is this guy feeling it? He's not feeling it? Let me salt it some more. So when was the last time you had sex with your wife? Oh, it was only 3 weeks ago, but it's not that bad. I'm jerking off and the porn or whatever the hell it is.
What guys do, yeah.
Yeah. If you had a guy ever tell you that, I just made that up. I don't know if the guy will actually tell you that.
Guys tell me that shit. Yeah. No,
right. So
it's fine.
So
yeah.
What's it like? What's it like jerking off in your hand and in a tissue rather than having sex with a live woman who's excited about having sex with you, who happens to love you, versus, what was the last time you had sex with your wife and she was enthusiastic about having sex with you rather than just lying there like a dead starfish? What's it like for you? How's that make you feel? Make that son of a bitch go there. And if he won't go there, say, listen, you got to help me out here. We're not going to solve your problem if you're not willing to go there. Until you're clear on the consequences, you can tell him what you're doing. Until you're clear on the if he tells you I'm clear on the consequences, just say, with all due respect, sir, that's like a patient going into a doctor's office with a broken arm and saying, I think my bone's set, and the doctor's saying, no, there's shards sticking out, and he's arguing with the doctor. Just say, I'm the doctor over here, you're the patient, let me do my job.
Got it, yeah.
And if he's not willing to let you do your job, respectfully kick him off the call. Tell him, I'm sorry, I can't work with people who refuse to take instruction. The way that this is a test for both you and me. The test for me is, am I treating you with the respect to help you understand your situation and that to prove to you that I know what I'm doing? And the test for you is, are you willing to listen? Are you willing to let me guide you? Because if you're not willing to even let me guide you on this call, I don't think I can help you. And that's how I would handle that. So I want you to spend a ton more time getting him in pain. In fact, I want you to feel uncomfortable about asking him more questions and still going there. You know what I mean? Right. It's going to make you hurt. Like, you're going to know when a guy's feeling the pain so much, he's going to say, I got nothing more to say to you. Because if it becomes about signing up for your program, that's not where you want him there. The program's just got to be the bridge to get him out of pain. It's got to be about, is he feeling the pain? Is he feeling the pain? And here's the truth. Here's the truth, Paul. I think people are feeling a lot of complacency right now. I know it because I've been feeling complacent. So I would suggest to you, you know, if you're attracting complacency from someone who's refusing to look at himself, look at yourself, at areas of your life. Because obviously you got this area handled up the yin yang, right? But you don't have every area handled, just like I don't have every area handled. I'm being honest.
That's why I have a coach.
Right? You have a coach. That's why I went on vacation, by the way. My coach, Mark, said to me, dude, you're burnt out. You don't really give a shit anymore because you don't have the capacity to give a shit anymore. You're burnt out. You get out of here. Get out of here, recharge. I'm recharged. He was right. I feel good, right? So where have I been complacent? So when I was in Cartagena, I went walking everywhere. I didn't have a car while I was there. The gym was a 15-minute walk. The grocery store was right under the gym, a 15-minute walk. We took a taxi downtown to the old town of Cartagena, which, by the way, is freaking gorgeous. You should go if you've never gone. It's stunning. UNESCO heritage site. It's incredible. So we took a cab, and then my buddy said, well, let's walk a little further. We walked all the way to the old town, Paul, and it was a good 40, 45-minute walk. I walked an hour and a half a day. And you want to know something, man? I'm like, okay, you know what? I've gotten lazy. I don't walk enough places. I just take the car everywhere because that's how I roll. That's complacency. So I'm gonna, like, it's kind of cold in Toronto. It's not, you know, Cartagena, it's like 80 degrees, 75, 80 degrees. Toronto,
it's a little bit more of a pleasant walk.
Right. Toronto at the moment is 30 degrees. Right? It's a little less pleasant, but I can still walk for a little bit. So here's my question for you. Where right now are you being complacent? Answer it for me, if you will.
Yeah, I know I'm being pretty complacent when it comes to, well, at least when it comes to wanting to do breakout calls or breakthrough calls. And we talked a little bit about on our group session or whatever, but I've gotten to a place where I'm almost like dreading having these calls, you know, because like I don't want to do it. It's an inconvenient time or whatever. That's just sort of what's going through my head. You know, I'm like, I got to do this call at 6 p.m. Because I also have a day job, right? So I have to schedule these types of things at like really early in the morning or late in the evening and stuff like that. So it cuts into like family time and whatever. And so when it gets to when I see a call on my calendar, it's almost like I'm mentally like, you know, I gotta take time out of my evening for this, away from my family and stuff to go do this. And so I almost like I've been really complacent about that lately for sure.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think that, you know, and this is a leading question, do you think people are picking up on the fact that you're not as fully excited as you were?
Oh, they probably are. Yeah, they probably are.
So, you know, either don't do the calls or shift your attitude about it into, man, I get to help a man in pain.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been working on, you know, doing some of the exercises that Mark taught me early in the beginning. I really went hard on doing a lot of those types of things. So I've been trying to work on that.
So, this is what I'm talking about. Ever since Trump got elected, right? This whole complacency attitude, I think, is everywhere, because before he got elected, there was an urgency to all of us. First of all, we were really pulling for him to win, because we thought the republics and freedom itself was at stake, and we thought business would be better under him. And secondly, it was not a sure thing that he was going to win. It was not a sure thing. There was a lot of us who were thinking, "Oh shit, what if he loses?" Right? What'll happen to us then? But then,
my conspiracy hat went on, and I was like, "Oh, they're gonna do some kind
they're
of
gonna do something, right?"
Yeah.
I had buddies of mine saying that. Now I felt pretty good about him winning, but I was very vested. I was checking things out every day, blah blah blah. But now he's won, and he's kicking the crap out of the opposition. I mean, it's almost unfair. I almost feel bad for them. Not really, but almost, right? Like it's so, you know, I'm emotionally relaxed. I'm not as vested, and the economy's starting to do better and all that good stuff, you know, and I'm hopeful that in Canada, the same thing will happen. But we do the majority of our business in the States. So for us, either way, it's not that big a deal. But the complacency comes from thinking, okay, things aren't so bad. I can relax. But the truth of the matter is, man, Paul, the reason you started doing what you're doing in the first place is because you wanted to help men avoid going through the same pain you went through, right? And
Yeah.
imagine before you get on that call, take a minute, right? Do a little visualization of that man and imagine that he's a man just like you, that he's married, he's got kids, and imagine the future timeline of what'll happen if he doesn't get your help. Imagine a year down the road, his wife having an affair, him finding out how that feels. Imagine his kids finding out his wife's having an affair, how that impacts them. And imagine 2 years down the road, divorce process. Imagine the nastiness of that. Imagine the cost of that. And imagine you were the guy who could have saved that. And you didn't because you didn't feel like it, and then just snap out of it and go, fuck it, man. This is a fellow human being. This is a brother. This is a man. This is why I do what I do. You got to reconnect to your purpose. You're not connected to your purpose, I think, at the moment, in the same way that you were. And maybe because you've had so much success. That's the same problem I had.
Yeah.
Success is great, but it also can suck if you're not careful.
Yeah, I had a huge explosion there, like right when we first started working, and then all of a sudden it's just like, nah. It's like it's definitely gone downhill. Yeah.
Well, you got to get hungry again. You're not hungry, right? You got to get hungry again. You're not hungry. So, add this into your daily morning rituals where you script things out that you're excited to help men. Each man is a brother that you're helping, and that until you're in a position to fully replace all the sources of income that you have, you're going to create this artificial hunger for yourself. I think that's what you need to do, because you don't have actual hunger, right? You need artificial hunger.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, anyways, that's my take on it, because you're a victim of your own success, brother.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Yeah, for sure.
Are you willing to do something about it? Are you willing to snap out of this?
Yeah, definitely. I've been working on it.
Okay, great. So you got to create some actual uncomfortableness in your day-to-day life. So what could do that for you?
What can I do to create uncomfortableness?
Yeah, because that's what's going to make you hungry.
I don't know. What do you mean by that?
Well, remember you used to run and do those gratitudes when you ran?
Yeah. I messed up my knee.
Oh no, man, that sucks.
Yeah, and that's probably a part of it too, because I haven't been running. I messed up my.
Can you walk?
Barely. I could barely walk. I messed up my meniscus. Yeah, and then I'm waiting on insurance to approve an MRI scan. So that's been going. It's been going on for like a couple weeks now.
Okay, all right. You doing all the icing and elevating and all that jazz, and
yeah, I do all that, and I'm still lifting weights, upper body exercises and stuff when I as much as I can. But
you got a knee brace on or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got one of those ACE braces, but yeah, I'm just waiting on.
Okay, so never mind the running. Okay, all right. How do you feel about cold plunges?
I don't like them.
I hate them myself.
I did one once a couple of years ago. I went to a men's retreat and we sat in an ice bucket for I can't remember how long it was. It felt like an eternity though.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to challenge you, bro.
Okay.
Do some daily either cold plunge or cold showers or something to get you out of since you can't do your runs. It's too bad. Might even be good for your knee, stick your leg in cold water for 30 seconds or a minute.
You know what? That's actually a good point that you brought up, because I was doing my running gratitudes. In the days I didn't do the gratitude while I was running, I still went running, but I would sit on my back patio and do a gratitude video. But I stopped doing that because I do the gratitude scripting in the morning. So
So do both,
so
man. Do both. You know,
yeah,
your success at the beginning was you did everything. You didn't pick and choose. You just did it all, and then
yeah.
the, there's power in that, right? Like your brand is very strong right now, and you get good traction and engagement. But people got to feel your to
Mm,
work with you. They need to feel your certainty. If you're like like I was there, and the reason I was there was I've had a lot of success. I'm tired. I'm burned out. So in my head, it was screw you all. You know what I mean? I didn't say those words, but that was the vibe. It was
yeah.
like I didn't want to do breakthrough calls, and I love breakthrough calls. And when I started to notice that I did not want to go on a call to help somebody, I'm like, whoa, something's wrong here, man. This is not good. This is not who I want to be in the
Mhm.
world, right? Be complacent and cavalier about a person's life. You know, so that's my advice. So try the plunge at least in your leg just past the knee.
Yeah.
Try that for a minute a day. It'll be uncomfortable. Try it for a week. Let's see if that'll get you, and then do your gratitudes. That's my advice. Okay.
All right. I can do those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And every day ask this question. Write this question down. What can I do today to get out of my comfort zone? And take action on one thing.
What can I do today to get out of my comfort zone?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Paul, let's circle back and wrap up this conversation with the importance of tying your purpose to your personal thought leader brand, irrespective of whether it's about business or money, why that as a man will make you feel more fulfilled and better about life. So give me your final thoughts on why that's important to you and why it ought to be important to the men listening today.
You know, now that I think about it, and thinking about my friend who says I'm a drummer, right? When you say I am anything, you're basically tying something in with your identity. It's who you are as a person. And so if you can tie your passion in with your brand, with your identity, it's something that's you'll be more motivated and have that discipline to follow through on, because it's a part of who you are, you know. And when we identify with something, I mean, we'll fight tooth and nail to protect it, and that's
Amen.
a feature. That's not a bug. So I think if you can get to that place where you develop this as your identity, you'll be that much more successful.
So, you know, in the world of marketing, they speak about a brand identity, right?
Mhm.
I think that your identity and your purpose um, really should be symbiotically interconnected. And as a man, that will make you feel most authentically you. This has been great conversation. Went in a different direction than I thought it would, but
Yeah, it turned into a coaching call. That's
it, it did. I actually think that'll be valuable for men. But
No, it'd be good. Yeah.
you know, Glasser choice theory says that if there's something you need to learn yourself, the best way to learn it is to teach it to another.
Mhm.
You know, it's far more impactful to teach it to another than it is to read about it. And I'm a big believer in reading, as you know. I mean, I got a ton out of reading your books. But if you bring this to a man, what he needs to do is create his own identity, his own brand identity, and tie that into his purpose. Because if who you are and what you stand for are the same, you're going to live a fulfilled life. If
Mhm.
they're not, you're not. So your friend who said, I'm a drummer and what I do for a living is, just pays the bills. That guy gets it. That guy gets it. I'm actually very impressed with him. And I think it's powerful that you remembered that and you shared that with us, because that made the whole episode as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, I mean, when he said that to me, it was something that I had never heard anyone else say before. You
Yeah,
know, almost everybody attributes who they are and what they do with what they do for a living. And
sure.
I mean, he made some side gig money with it, but that's not what he did for a living. It's what his passion was, though. And so, yeah, it always stuck with me.
Paul Bowerman, you are a great guest, and each of our episodes has been valuable in a different way in its own right. And this was obviously no exception. And I honestly believe that we should have a similar conversation on my Thought Leader podcast about purpose, brand, and we'll talk about how to monetize that over there, because that's what that show's about. But it's a very interesting conversation, don't you think? And it really made me think. I don't know if it made you think to the same extent that it made me think, but it really made me think.
No, it really made me think because I've never had a discussion about this type of thing before with anybody. So when you were like, "This is what we're talking about today," I was like, "Okay, like I'll give it a shot." I don't know what will come out of my mouth, but we'll see.
Look, we can talk about attraction dynamics till the cows come home. I find it to be a fascinating subject, and I'll probably have you back on to talk about that. You're the best in the world at it, in my opinion, because you cut to the heart of the matter. But you've also done something pretty unique with your own brand and with your purpose. And I wanted to mine your thinking around that, because I learn as much from you as you learn from me. You
Mhm.
know, you said this turned into a coaching session for you. That's true. But in a way, it was a coaching session for me too, because what you said about your friend who said, I'm a drummer, but, IT is just how I pay the bills. That was very powerful for me. That was a good learning. And I'm very glad that I heard that from you. I learned something that I'm going to apply to the coaching I do with all my clients. So you're probably going to hear me talk about this in an upcoming meeting, right?
Good. All right.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm thinking about a couple of the folks in our group, right? Like the Renaissance man, Michael Osterlenk, who does all those different things, and I want to run this by him, and I want him to go, okay, so what do you do, Michael? What do you do? Let's see if he can answer that. Right?
That'd be good because he does a lot of different things.
He sure as hell does. Sure as hell
Yeah.
does. And he's really smart. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And I've met a lot of very smart people.
Yeah.
And I think this sort of thing is good because it makes everybody think. Now, we have exercises we do inside the thought leader work that we do to help people get clear on their positioning in the marketplace, professionally speaking. But I think what your friend was talking about, I'm a drummer, is about way more than his professional persona in the marketplace. It's about what is at the core of his soul.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, if you can have something that's at the core of your soul and you can turn that into your day-to-day profession, I think you're one of the wealthiest men on the planet.
Yeah, it's what they say. If you do what you love to do, then you're not working, right? You don't work a day in your life, or whatever the actual phrase is.
Yeah. It's very good. It's very good. It's very good. Anyways, like I said, I learned a ton. Thanks for coming on the show. Let's do this again on the other podcast. And God bless you, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.